into a puzzle that puts the Earth together. So you need to cut out all of these individual pieces. Please notice that some of the pieces have these numbers on them. Do not cut off the numbers. Include the numbers when you're cutting it out. Some of them only have a couple of numbers, like this letter A is an easy one to cut off. Can you see that? Right there, it's part of this big piece here. So that's the first step, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to get these cut out. All right? Ready, set, go. So the next step is we're going to put these pieces together. And so you'll need a blank sheet of paper, and then you start building your puzzle. I think you're going to need, you can leave about this much room for your margins, and then glue these down into a map that will show the different plates compared to one another. So what I would like you to do in the next little musical interlude is get this whole thing glued down. And then we'll come back and we'll start adding labels on there, all right? I really recommend a glue stick because it's easy to write on the paper after you've glued it down. Something like Elmer's glue will work, of course, but don't put too much on because then it gets all weird and lumpy, right? And then if you're going to use tape, you should make a little roll and tape the back on there because we have to write a whole bunch of stuff all over this. We're going to be writing all over this map, labeling lots of things. So that's why I like a glue stick. Okay? So I'm going to turn on some music. When the music stops, that will be time for your next set of instructions. Let me know if you have questions. Either just unmute your microphone or write me a note.
What does it say on the top?
Sorry, what was that?
What does the top say?
It says plates map.
Okay.
So our next step is, of course, put a title on it and put your name on it. And then we're going to start by labeling the names of the plates. Now, most of these plates have the names of the continent that's part of the plate. For example, down here, we have the South American plate. But notice it also includes a lot of ocean as well as the continent. And this one's kind of cool. North American plate. Look right here. Here's Baja California, and here's the rest of California, not even really part of North America. Those are part of the Pacific plate. And this dividing line, this dotted line here, is actually the San Andreas Fault that separates part of California from the rest of North America. Basically, it's a line from the Gulf of Mexico to San Francisco, and all that land to the west is part of the Pacific plate. And so what we're going to do, because we have lots of things to label on here, we are not going to write the names directly on there. Instead, we're going to make a key. And this is what your key will look like. So right here, you're going to copy these down on the paper. Then you're only going to put the numbers on the map itself. Let me go back and show you. So, for example, down here at the bottom, I'm going to put number 1, North American plate. And then I'm only going to put a number 1 on that plate, because I have lots of other things I need to write in different places on this plate. So we're just going to make a key down at the bottom and then put the numbers on the map itself. All right, so let's go back to that key. And then I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get this done. All right, can you see that now? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're just doing this. We've already done step 1, cut them out and glue them together. We're on step 2 up here. We're just doing this part right now. Okay? So take a minute and get all those labels on your map. I'll cut the music when it's time to come back to work. Okay, so by this time we should be close to having at least the key done. So you should have copied down the 8 names of these plates. Now there are many more plates than this, but they're very small. And there's a couple I wanted to point out. The obvious ones, North American plate, South American plate, African plate. The Eurasian plate, really Europe and Asia are one big landmass. And they are separated by a mountain range that goes basically right here, called the Ural Mountains in Russia. And that's where we define the difference between Europe and Asia. Most likely, they used to be a separate plate that merged together, and the scar from where they collided and welded onto one another is the Ural Mountains, which is pretty eroded now, I believe. The Indo-Australian plate is this one long plate. It includes both India and Australia, and of course all this part of the ocean floor of the Indian Ocean and parts of the Southern Pacific. So that's a unique one. Now, because we are taking a sphere, the globe, and turning it into a flat map, a couple things happen. One, we had to cut the Pacific plate into 2 pieces. So it would be best if you labeled both parts of the Pacific plate. The Antarctic plate, of course, down here at the south with the continent of Antarctica. Keep in mind that there is no continent on the North Pole. That's all ocean, covered with an ice cap. So I guess Santa's house is floating on the ice over there. And then finally, the Nazca plate. So the Nazca plate, part of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of South America, the Nazca plate is named after a culture that lived in what is now Peru, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And they are famous for making these giant carvings. And when I say giant, I mean they're bigger than football fields. And they're carvings in the ground that show, there's one of a monkey and one of a hummingbird, a spider, and some of them are just kind of random, apparently random lines. And the crazy thing is you can really only see them from an airplane. So the question is, how did those people a couple thousand years ago know what they were doing? And we call those patterns the Nazca lines. So this plate is named after that culture, the Nazca people. Okay? So next, we are going to show arrows showing the direction of plate movement. And so this is a big chunk of Earth's surface moving along. So I'm going to make a pretty big arrow. I'm going to make what's called a block arrow. And North America is moving westward. So choose another color. And I'm going to go back to the instructions, which will give you the direction of each plate's movement. That's down here. So I've already done North American plate moving west. So keep adding the block arrows on each plate to show the direction of motion. Some of them you might want to put a couple arrows in if they're a long stretched out plate, or if the plate is divided into 2 parts. All right, so take a minute to do that, and then we will meet again momentarily. All right, how we doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so hopefully now we have all the continents numbered, I should say plates numbered, and a key showing their names. And then we have arrows showing the direction of movement of each plate, right? So let's now make another part of our key showing three symbols. First, we're going to have the arrow that shows the direction of plate motion. Then we're going to use a triangle to show the location of a volcano. And we're actually going to map 20 of these on here. Similarly, we're going to plot 20 earthquakes on this map. Now, really, the way we should be doing that is by using our numbers across the top and the side, which is the proper measurements of the Earth. But in this activity, we're just going to use these letters, which kind of got cut off on the side here. Sorry about that. And these numbers. For instance, let's see. This would be P10. If it told me to make a volcano there, I would draw a volcano right at P10. But let's review these numbers first of all. These numbers that are these lines going up and down, the vertical lines across the globe, versus these ones going across the globe. Do you guys remember these? We studied these way back in the beginning of the year. For instance, this 0 line, what is this line going across the planet right here? Who can tell me? You should know. Unmute your microphone, tell me what that 0 is. You need a hint? It starts with E.
Equator.
There you go. That's the equator. So let's label that over here. And then anything above the equator is going to be north latitude. And anything below it is going to be south latitude. So let's get those labels in there. So if these lines going across here are latitude, what does that make these lines? Somebody unmute your microphone, tell me, what are these lines? These are latitude. So these are...
Longitude.
Yeah, there you go. Longitude. And what's 0 degrees longitude? What do we call that line? It goes right through Greenwich, England. Who's got that one? Do you remember? 2 words. First word starts with P. Second word starts with M.
Prime meridian.
Good job. That would be the prime meridian. And then over here we have east longitude. And here we have west longitude. It's hard to tell what I'm filming. There we go. So we've labeled the longitude, the latitude, the equator, the prime meridian, and we've made this key with these 3 different items on it, right? So now we're ready to start plotting the locations of volcanoes and earthquakes. And to do that, I'm going to go back to the worksheet. And right down here at the very bottom. There are actually 20 of each. So I'm going to do this first row with you. Okay, so let's see. I need to find Y3 and make a triangle there. So I'm going to go back to my paper so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to find the letter Y over here. And at the bottom of the page, I see the number 3. So I find where those intersect. Y3 looks like I should draw a volcano right there, which concerns me a little bit because that's basically right on top of my dad's house. Then I had another volcano at S17. Where's S? There it is. 17's over here. Right here, there's a volcano. Then I'm going to jump over to earthquakes. I'm going to do 2 earthquakes with you. The first one, oh boy, it's at Y3 again. So I'm going to squeeze an earthquake in right next to that volcano. And then I'm going to do one more at T22.5. So let's see, T is up here, 22.5 right there. T, right about there in Japan. Another earthquake, right? So, this is what I would like you to do for the rest of the period. You're going to show the location of the other 18 volcanoes and the other 18 earthquakes on there. Then you can put this away, and we'll come back next class and there will be some questions and for you to answer, and we'll have some discussion about it. But there was some other stuff that you were supposed to do last class, as I recall. First of all, you were supposed to have finished taking notes from the plate tectonics evidence PowerPoints. Okay, so basically, if you didn't finish taking notes from the PowerPoint, it is posted on Teams and you can do that and upload your notes when you're done. The last part of your notes should basically summarize 10 categories of evidence for plate tectonics. That was supposed to be done before the weekend, but if you didn't finish it, get it done. Then we started on a reading from the textbook. You were going to read a section of the textbook and answer some questions, 17.1 questions. So those are the 3 things for you to do during the rest of class time. Finish this plates map, finish the notes if you didn't, and then answer the questions from the textbook. Now let me go back to the list of volcanoes and earthquakes. And you can take a photo of this if you like. I will also post this chart on Teams for you. So there's your 20 volcanoes and your 20 earthquakes. We did the first 4 across. Ready? Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, so you basically have another hour of class. And so you've got those 3 things to work on: finishing the map, finishing the notes, and then answering questions from the textbook. Those are posted on Teams for you, right? 17.1 questions. All right. And if you don't have any questions for me, you are free to check out of this meeting. Let me know if you have questions. Send me a note, either on Teams or on my email, and I'll help you figure it out, okay?
Thank you.
All right.